All right, guys, we're gonna go over a couple laws according to the laws of addition and subtraction, and the laws of multiplication and division. Miss Wilson, what do you mean by that? Well, these are some rules that you need to know. Put them in your mind forever and ever and ever and ever. Okay, so we're gonna deal with the laws of addition and subtraction first. And so these are the laws that determine what we do with the signs when they're touching or when they're different. Okay, so with addition, if you have two of the same signs, if you have an addition sign and an addition sign, you add them together and the answer is going to be positive. If you have an addition sign and a subtraction sign, you subtract those two. You subtract the two numbers, subtract numbers, and you go with the sign of bigger number. I'm going to show you what I mean by that in a minute. And then if you have a negative number and a negative number, what you do with those is you add and keep the sign. Okay? Those are the laws of addition and subtraction. Remember these laws, okay? So now when you have the laws of multiplication and division, when you see two signs touching, they're right beside each other, they're touching, this is what you do. You remember that a positive times a positive equals a positive. A positive times a negative equals a negative. Negative times negative equals positive. Those are the laws of multiplication and subtraction. So let me just show you what I'm talking about with the first one. So let's say we have, let me say this. If you see a number that's just standing alone, this is a positive number. This is the same as, plus 5. That's positive. If you see a number, if you see a number like blank plus 5, that number right there is positive. Okay? I need you to know that. Okay? So if a number is just by itself, it's always positive. Okay? If you see a number that's like this, that's a negative number. Let me do it like that. If it had that, that's negative. If it's minus 1, that's negative. Okay? I need you to remember these things, okay? And I know you can. All right? So, I just want you to remember these laws of subtraction and addition and subtraction, and multiplication and division. So, now that I've said that, let me show you what I'm talking about. So if I have, I'm going to do the first one. Positive equals a positive. And maybe I should do it like that. Positive plus a positive equals a positive. Okay? We're going to let this line equal our negative line. Be our equal. Okay? That's what the answer going to look like. All right. So, positive plus a positive equals a positive. 1 plus 3 equals 4. Everything in there is positive. Okay? That's how that works. That's what that means. Let's do positive and a negative means you subtract the number and go with the sign of the bigger. We're gonna do two different sign of the bigger. We're gonna do two examples of this problem. Okay, so let's say we have 6 minus 1 equals what? 6 minus 1 equals 5. This -1 or this 1 is negative. Even though we don't see a sign in front of this, that's positive. So you subtract and go with the sign of the bigger. So that's 5. Another way this could be written is 6 plus -1 equals. Okay, so these two signs are touching. Actually, that's a rule for the multiplication and division. So we're gonna do something different. We're not gonna use that. So let's do -7 plus 3. We have two different signs. We have a negative sign and a positive sign. So different signs, you subtract. 7 minus 3 is what? 4. And you go with the sign of the bigger number. 7 is the biggest number, so it's -4. That's what I mean by subtract, and you go with the sign of the bigger number. Okay? And then let's do this last one. We got a negative and a negative, and that means that you add and keep the sign. Actually, both of these. And anytime you have two signs, you just add them together and keep the sign. All right, so look. -1, it can show up like this. -1 plus -3. We're not doing it again. -1 minus 3. We got the same sign, right? So we're going to add these two numbers together. 1 plus 3 is what? 4. And keep the sign, which is -4. That's all that means, okay? That's all that means. Now, later, you will see it may look like this. -1 plus -3. They got the same sign. Keep the sign of the big, keep the sign. Okay? But for right now, this is all you need to know. Alright? So that's the laws. That's the law of the signs with addition and subtraction. Alright. Let's go to the law of signs with multiplication. What this means is positive times a positive equals a positive. 3 times 3 equals 9. All those are positive numbers. If it looked like this, same thing. +3 plus times +3 equals +9. Okay? If it were written like that, that's all that means. Now you got positive times a negative equals a negative. 4 times -2 equals what? -8. Why? Because you got a negative sign. You got a positive 4 times a -2. Negative times a positive equals a negative. Every time. It's not going to change, okay? But you might see that, you might see it written like this. 4 times negative, yeah, you could see it written like this. 4 times 4 times a negative 2 equals what? Well, guess what? That still equals negative 8, because what that's going to be is 4 times, even though you don't see a 1 right here, it's like having a negative 1 times 2. So it'll be 4 times negative 2 still equals negative 8. Okay? Laws of the signs, okay? And then let's do this one. A negative times a negative equals a positive. Well, what do you mean? I'm glad you asked. Negative 2 times negative 5 equals what? I got a negative times a negative. It can be written like this. Negative 2 times negative 5. No matter how it's written, it's 2 negatives equals a positive 10. Okay? Multiplication and division is the only time you can have 2 negatives and come up with a positive. Okay? And those are the laws. These are the laws for the signs. Okay? Let me show you how this would look if it was written for multiplication and division. Negative 1 plus negative 3 equals. So, y'all remember when I was talking about if the signs touch? So, we got a negative 1. These two signs are touching. We have a negative and a positive. So that means if I wanted to fix this, I could just say a negative times a positive equals a negative. And then I bring that 3 down. And then now it is negative 1 minus 3. Now I can use the law of addition. A negative plus a negative means you keep the sign, you add and keep the sign. So I add the 1 and the 3 and just keep the sign and have negative 4. Okay? I hope that didn't confuse you. If it did, we're going to do a whole teaching on this, but I wanted to get you familiar with the laws of the signs for addition and subtraction. Okay? Look, I believe in you. You got this. You can do algebra. You're going to be fine in algebra, okay? You have a great day, darling. Bye-bye.